From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. Here's what's coming up. Over from the Kansas Crop Improvement Association, Eric Fabrizius will talk about wheat seed quality and availability heading into the fall wheat planting season. And for you growers who've saved back your own seed for planting this fall, Eric goes over the procedure for having that seed tested for germination. Then, on the latest edition of FSA Coffee Talk, Janet Kramer of the Farm Service Agency will go over the details of the USDA's Farm Storage Facilities Loan Program. And on this week's Wildlife Management segment, K-State's Charlie Lee will talk about the reported increase in rat activity in urban settings during the pandemic. All this and more here on Agriculture Today.
A social distancing tip.
While the CDC urges you to avoid close contact, like hugging or shaking hands, there are other non-physical ways to say hello. Wave, wink, use sign language, salute, smile, give the peace sign, throw up an air high five, do jazz hands. Remember, stay a minimum of 6 feet or 2 arms length away from others, and stay home if you can. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to Agriculture Today, and for you wheat growers, more remarks in advance of the fall planting season as to the quality of wheat seed that resulted from this past harvest and available to you to sow this fall. Joining us now from the Kansas Crop Improvement Association, which is based here at Kansas State University, the seed laboratory manager there, Eric Fabrizius, to talk over seed quality, seed quantity, and the like. And as you look back at this past production season as it relates to wheat seed, what's your general take on it, Eric?
Well, good morning, everyone. Right now, we're moving right along with seed testing in the laboratory. Got a lot of stuff been run through, and the good news for this year is that we've got very high quality with most everything that we've seen come through. You know, last year was a scab year, head scab year for everybody throughout a big part of the state, and the good news is that we aren't seeing but just a very, very few samples that have had any of that kind of infection in it this year. So germination quality has been extremely high on about everything, whether you're talking certified or even farmer samples sent in. But so far, good test weights. Seed counts are a little bit higher maybe than normal, but excellent germination quality.
So it's a stark contrast to last year is what you're saying.
Exactly,
right?
Yes. We saw head scab infection in a huge portion of the state. You know, the eastern portion of the state is generally fighting the Fusarium head scab, but last year we saw it stretch much further west than we've ever seen, and so there was a big chunk of the growers were fighting that issue, and seed treatments were necessary just to get adequate germination in some cases.
So, to the moment, you're seeing very few germination issues with the samples, certified or otherwise, that you've been running through the laboratory?
Correct, yeah. We've had just, a dozen or so samples that have showed a little bit of infection, and generally we find out when they've been planted on corn stubble, and that's a good way to test your varieties to see if they're going to have any resistance to scab, and so like I say, there's just been a few that have shown that issue.
So quality is apparently not much of an obstacle this year for growers. What about quantity of seed, certified seed now? Do you have a feel for that?
Our acres were pretty close to normal as far as what our growers applied for and came through in the production side of it. Yields were off in some areas, particularly out in the western part, compared to, I mean, not that they were terrible yields, but they were down from what we'd seen the last couple of years out in that direction. But I think regardless, there's going to be ample supplies of seed available. As per usual, you know, if you're looking for something on the newer varieties, You might, get in touch with your grower in your area and see what availability they may have for those new varieties. But by and large, there's going to be ample certified seed supply out there.
And you touch upon it every year. There is at least a handful of new varieties that producers can consider. And as you've witnessed their performance in the laboratory anyway, those are all basically passing muster, it appears.
Yes. And between the Lima Grain, Westbred, Syngenta, Kansas Wheat Alliance, and then, of course, you got the programs out of Oklahoma, Colorado, and Nebraska. There's ample varieties to choose from nowadays, and so far everything is coming through in great shape.
So ask of your local certified grower about quantity and availability of those if those interest you, but it always is a good idea as well to diversify your selections at times, isn't it, Eric?
For sure, yeah. There's, we've seen Clearfield varieties have been around now for a good number of years. We're starting to see a fair number of coaxium varieties, which is a similar technology but different mode of action that's available in a few varieties. So those are out there. But yeah, there's plenty of varieties out there that include some of these new technologies. And for those of you that are interested, we do put out a seed directory that was, I believe, out in the August 17th issue of the High Plains Journal for you that receive that. If you do not receive that or just care to take a look, we also have our website, www.kscrop.org. And we have posted our directory with all the different varieties, and it includes other crops such as triticale, oats, and so on that are available as well.
So take full advantage of that directory if you need guidance on finding seed and where the local vendor might be in your location. Now, producers who are more inclined to save back seed, and well, you always encourage the use of certified seed, but if an individual is more prone to saving seed, there's still just cause for them having that seed tested for sure, Eric.
Absolutely. So, the nice thing about buying certified seed is that it's been inspected in the field, it's been tested in the lab, and we know that quality is there. But, as a farmer in Kansas, you have the right generally to save seed and plant on your own acreage. And I think, it's a pretty cheap little investment to get a germ test done on those varieties that you're going to plant. Again, we, last year with the head scab being an issue, we saw a lot of samples coming in from farmers that were getting germ tests. And I think, that news spreads around and it encourages people to do testing. Without that news, people think maybe that they're, okay. And by and large, the wheat, as a quick turnaround that we have, it will do just fine. But there are instances, I've had a couple again this year, where the people that do send in samples are finding, every once in a while we find one, maybe it got stored too wet and the bin got hot, and that can ruin germination in a very short amount of time. So testing is always a good thing. By and large, if you're planting your own, a germination test is the biggest thing you're going to be interested in. Precision planting has obviously become more popular through the years, so a seed count is something else that we'll do to let you know how many seeds per pound that lot has. And then, of course, as you move into some of the cover crops with rye and triticale, there's a number of folks out there that are dealing with that. And for legal sale in the state of Kansas, you need to have a complete test done, which is a purity, germination, and noxious weed exam. And those three things there will get you what you need then to properly label and sell your cover crop seed of rye and triticale and those sort of things.
If a producer has not gone through the process of having their saved back seed tested for germination largely, what sampling protocols need to be followed here?
Basically, I would again send you to our website, which is www.kscrop.org, and there is a tab for the seed laboratory. There you will find a sample submittal form as well as a price list. And basically then you would need to draw a representative sample of about 1 pound to 2 pounds and package that up and include the submittal form and send it to the lab, which would be listed there on the sheet, and we'll get you taken care of.
And it'll be relatively swift turnaround time, as you say.
Yes, right
typically.
now, okay, so with wheat, we have to do a pre-chill period in order to break any dormancy that may be in that seed. We will be concluding that pre-chill time here by about the end of the month, and so currently it's a 12-day test for germ on wheat, oats, barley, etc. But as we get closer to the 1st of September, we will reduce that down to a 7-day test. Of course, lab backup can always be a bit of an issue, but currently we're in pretty good shape, and we would be getting stuff planted same day or next day, primarily for samples coming in.
But good advice for a producer not to wait until the proverbial last minute to send a sample in.
For sure, yes.
A week or so before they intend to plant, for instance.
There's nothing I can do to speed up a 7-day germ test.
Right. General thoughts, Eric, although this enters into the agronomy management area, but with such clean seed out there, the need for a seed treatment to protect, a fungicidal treatment, your thoughts?
Oh, the input of seed is, when you think about how critical it is to stand establishment and that final production that you're going to have, anything that you can do to ensure that you are putting good quality seed in the ground and giving it the best start it can is always a good thing. Last year with the head scab, it became more in focus with needing those fungicides just to get those seeds to grow and get the plant established. But, maybe that's not, the scab isn't an issue. That's not quite as critical this year, but still not a bad idea to protect that seed as it's beginning to germinate and establish those plants.
It's insurance, really, in many
Absolutely.
ways. Yeah. So it's nice to head into a wheat planting season with the reassurance that those lots of seed out there, certified seed, are clean and ready to go. So it hopefully will be a good start to the crop itself with that quality of seed out there, Eric.
Absolutely. I think our guys are poised for a good year from a quality and availability standpoint.
Very well. If you have any questions about the certified seed program or the seed testing and sampling process, you can find out more at that website, kscrop.org. Appreciate your time as always, Eric, for coming over, sharing your thoughts on getting quality seed into the ground. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much.
He's the seed laboratory manager with the Kansas Crop Improvement Association, Eric Fabrizius, on wheat seed quantity and quality for planting this fall. You're listening to Agriculture Today.
When you are in need of timely, reliable, and trusted information, K-State Research and Extension is here. Whether it's organizing people, information, or resources, they have the necessary tools. Community comes first for K-State Research and Extension. For more information and to connect with your county's extension agents, visit www.ksre.k-state.edu.
Next up for you on this Agriculture Today, it's our feature every other Tuesday on the broadcast, the FSA Coffee Talk. This is where we bring in specialists from the Farm Service Agency state headquarters to talk about another facet of USDA programs. And what we'll do here is single out another particular opportunity among that array of USDA loan programs for you producers. Joining us now is Farm Loan Specialist with the Kansas FSA, Janet Kramer. Glad to have her along. And Janet, we have, with your colleague Bob White and others, discussed previously the various loan programs that the FSA administers. There is a loan program for grain storage. Tell us about the program and its purposes, if you would.
Good afternoon. Yes, Farm Service Agency administers a Commodity Credit Corporation loan program for farm storage facilities. We commonly refer to this as the FSFL program, and it stands for Farm Storage Facility Loan. The program is intended for storage and handling of any eligible commodities. This is commonly used for storage structures, including grain bins and grain distribution systems. In addition, we can consider the following loan purposes. We can do hay storage structures. We can do bulk tanks for milk storage. We're allowed to do cold storage for meat, eggs, or fruits and vegetables. A few years ago, we added the opportunity to be able to loan for portable equipment that is used to handle these eligible commodities. Some of these, for an example, would include augers, grain carts, hay wagons, baggers and unloaders. We can do storage and handling trucks, including semi-trucks, grain trucks, and semi-trailers, such as grain hopper trailers. At about the same time, they did allow us to expand the program that not only new items, but we can make loans for used items under this program. We can also upgrade existing farm storage facilities.
So it really is more far-reaching than most folks might have realized. It's, as you say, well beyond just grain storage, but most assuredly grain storage facilities included here. Whom is eligible to utilize the program, and what requirements would befall that individual?
Eligible commodities for this program include grains or hay that are commonly raised in Kansas. In addition, other eligible commodities include fruits, vegetables, milk, eggs, meat, aquaculture, and floriculture. The key is that the applicant must be the producer of this eligible commodity. The program is not intended to be utilized for commercial storage. It is to store or handle the production of our producer. What we do is we complete a storage calculation process to verify that the applicant shows the need for the storage structure. This is based upon their reported production acres. For grain storage, we can consider 2 years storage needs. For cold storage, which is fruits and vegetables, meats, we allow 1 year storage needs. Our applicants are required to provide proof of crop insurance on the eligible commodities. At closing, we would also require structural insurance on that.
And, of course, local FSA personnel can walk through all of the finer details of all of those requirements. What about financial requirements for a loan applicant under this program, Janet?
Yes. Anyone who's familiar with our typical loan programs for a Farm Service Agency under the farm loan programs understands that the requirement of applicants that they are not able to obtain credit elsewhere from their primary lending institution. This is not a requirement for the FSFL program. We can make a loan to applicants who would have the resources to obtain a loan from their normal lending institution. We are required to review the applicant's current balance sheet. This is to verify that they have the resources available to make the down payment. In addition, we look at a typical year cash flow. This is to assure the applicant can make the annual payment on the loan.
And the terms of those loans, in brief, you might cover those here.
Okay. The maximum loan amount is $500,000 for each loan. Applicants may have multiple loans. There's no limit to the number of loans you can have. The only limit is that you have to be able to show the storage need and to show the repayment ability. Applicants are required to make a down payment of 15% of the total cost of the structure or of the equipment. There is a slight variance in that down payment amount if it's a small loan of $50,000 or less. The available terms that we offer are 3, 5, 7, 10, or 12 years. The loan term would correspond with the loan amount. Smaller loans are amortized in a shorter time frame, and the larger loans we offer the longer amortization term. Interest rates are established each month for this program. Interest rates for each loan is the rate that's in effect at the time of the loan approval, and this rate is fixed for the term of the loan. Currently, the rates are very desirable. For example, loans approved in August, a 3-year term would carry an interest rate of 0.25%, and a 12-year term has an interest rate of 0.75%. So right now, the interest rates are very desirable.
Indeed. And is any form of security required for one of these farm storage facilities loans?
Yes, the security requirements do depend upon what's the aggregate outstanding balance for FSFL. In other words, we consider if they have other principal or other FSFL loans, we consider the principal balance on the existing loans plus the new loan request. And if the aggregate outstanding balance is $100,000 or less, then CCC takes a lien on the structure itself or the equipment, whichever is applicable for that loan application. If the aggregate amount is over $100,000, then we do require a lien on real estate. As an alternative to a lien on the structure or a lien on the real estate, we do offer the option that the applicant provides us with an irrevocable letter of credit from their lending institution.
So particulars to keep in mind there. And with other loan types elsewhere, certain fees are required. Are there any such fees attached to this loan program?
Yes, there is. For each application, there's a $100 fee. That covers some of CCC's expenses incurred in the processing of the application. In addition, if the loan is secured by real estate that we just discussed, the applicant would be required to pay for the appraisal if it's needed, along with the cost of any title work or mortgage filing fees or anything to obtain our lien on that real estate.
Well, there's the basic framework of the Farm Storage Facilities Loan Program. What's the process by which one should apply? What steps do they need to follow here?
Okay. Kansas has regionalized the delivery of the FSFL program. We have 4 offices in the state that are primarily responsible for administering this program. I would recommend anyone interested contact your local FSA office that you deal with. They will be able to assist you on, part of the application processing, along with the regional offices. There is one very important key in the application process for structures that I did want to visit about. We must complete our environmental review prior to loan approval. This does require notifications to State Historical Preservation Office or Tribal Historical Preservation Office. It is very key that applicants contact our office prior to any ground disturbance so that this environmental review can be completed. It can take 30 to 45 days to get that process completed. So if applicants know they're interested in our program, it's very important that they get in there and talk to the county office, and they can assist them with this process. We recommend that you come in early in the planning stages. We can assist you on, completing the application and getting this environmental review done and assist you with the application process. One other key item is construction should not begin, nor should, if it's portable equipment, nor should anything be purchased, the purchase be completed prior to approval. That is one requirement of this program. It's not a refinancing as such. We have to be involved in the purchase process.
Well, it's set up to accommodate producers for an assortment of farm storage needs, not only grain, as you say, Janet, but for hay storage, milk storage, cold storage, and other equipment needs that would be associated with these storage types. And if one has any questions whatsoever, those local FSA folk are fully well-versed on this program.
They are. And we thank you for allowing us to share this information. It's a great program available to the producers in Kansas.
Indeed it is. And that would be, once again, the Farm Storage Facilities Loan Program. And your local FSA can handle conducting that business with you. Janet, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
She's Janet Kramer, Farm Loan Specialist with the Kansas Farm Service Agency State Office on the Farm Storage Facilities Loan Program. And that's been our topic on this FSA Coffee Talk here on Agriculture Today. We'll be back with more after the break over the K-State Radio Network.
Did you know every Kansas farmer feeds 128 plus people?
Kansas farmers are hard workers, dependable, authentic, and sensitive.
Not only do farmers put food on your table, but they put clothes on your back and fuel in your car.
For more information about Kansas farmers, visit K-State Research and Extension online or stop by your local extension office. This message has been brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
Coming to you from the campus of Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Welcome back. Eric Atkinson here. And now to today's agricultural news headlines, courtesy in part of DTN. Well, our ongoing dry weather in Kansas is telling in this week's Kansas Crop Progress and Condition Report from the USDA for the week ending this past Sunday. Our topsoil moisture supplies at 2% surplus, 55% adequate, 43% short to very short now. Subsoil moisture, 3% surplus, 60% adequate, and 37% short to very short. The condition of the Kansas corn crop, 61%, still good to excellent, 26% fair, 13% poor to very poor, with corn in the dough stage now at 90%, in the dent at 57%, and corn now mature is at 8%. Soybean crop conditions, 67% good to excellent yet, 26% fair, 7% poor to very poor. Soybeans blooming, 94%, and setting pods at 80%. Soybeans now dropping leaves at 4%. And grain sorghum conditions in the state, 65% good to excellent this week, 27% fair, 8% poor to very poor. Sorghum headed at 90% now, and sorghum turning color, 33%. Range and pasture conditions in the state, 47% good to excellent, 37% fair now, and 16% poor to very poor. Now for an update on corn and soybean conditions nationally, here's the USDA's Stephanie Ho.
There was a fairly sharp decline in corn and soybean condition across the country.
Part of that is the derecho in Iowa and portions of neighboring states. Part of that are pockets of drought that are affecting not only Iowa, but a few other areas in the Corn Belt, including the eastern production areas.
That was USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey.
As of the 23rd of August, only 64% of the crop now rated good to excellent. That is down significantly from last week's 69% and the pre-derecho number on August 9th of 71% good to excellent.
12% of U.S. corn is rated very poor to poor. Meanwhile, with soybeans,
now 69% of the U.S. soybeans rated good to excellent, and that represents a 5-point decline over the last 2 weeks. We now see 8% of the soybeans rated very poor to poor. That's up 3 points over the last 2 weeks.
This is Stephanie Ho for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
K-State's Agricultural Research Center at Hays and its Southwest Research and Extension Center at Garden City are all set to host their virtual fall field days tomorrow and Thursday, respectively. These will take place, each of them, from noon until 1:30, so a great lot of information compacted into that hour and a half each day. Both of these are being held online only. They're free to attend, but they're asking you to register in advance. You can find that registration link at southwest.ksu.edu. Quickly, the topics to be covered on tomorrow's session: new herbicide-tolerant crop traits and weed control strategies for western Kansas, the role of temperature in insect population dynamics, the dual use of cover crops for soil health and forage in dryland systems, and sorghum hybrids for early and normal planting. That will comprise the program out of the Agricultural Research Center at Hays over the noon hour tomorrow. And then the Garden City portion of the program on Thursday the 27th, starting at noon. They'll cover alfalfa and corn insect management strategies, a look at dryland cover crop research over the past decade in western Kansas, expanding cotton recommendations will be covered, and a look at bee diversity in edge habitat of active croplands in western Kansas. If you'd like more information on either of these programs, you can call the Western Kansas Agricultural Research Center at 785-625-3425 or the Southwest Research and Extension Center 620-275-9164. Now it's on to this week's edition of Milk Lines, and awaiting with that, as always, K-State Dairy Specialist Mike Brook. Mike?
Today I want to talk to our Kansas dairy farmers concerning whole plant moisture as well as starch levels in corn silage. I know some of you have already started chopping your corn silage for 2020, and over the next month or so we'll probably be taking the rest of it out of the field. One of the things that we always have looked at as whole plant moisture is to determine when we should start chopping. a lot of the recommendations have been that you should start chopping when whole plant dry matter reaches 32%, or about 68% moisture. However, you might want to think about this a little bit. In the year that we have this year, with plenty of rain over most of the state, the corn is still growing, and so if we can wait just a little bit longer, we can increase the starch level in the corn silage. How does that happen? Well, we always watch the milk line, and we've had a recommendation that we need to chop when the milk line is somewhere between 1/2 to 3/4 down the kernel. However, when you do that, you're giving up about 25% of that kernel depth that wouldn't be mostly starch if we would wait just a little bit. So can we go near a zero or fully developed or black layer? Will that increase the starch level of the corn silage? Yes, it will. Generally, we see about a 3 to 5 percentage point increase in the starch level if we let it go just a little bit longer. And if the plant is still green, we may be able to do that. Moisture is still king, so we need to make sure that it has good moisture, but how far can we push that line? Well, part of this gets tied back to what type of inoculant you're using. If you're using a silage inoculant that contains L-butyrate, this will create a fermentation that has a higher level of acetic acid in it. Therefore, it is more stable during the feed-out phase. That allows us to push the dry matter content up a bit, maybe 36 to 38%, rather than trying to keep the dry matter content down in that 32 to 34%. This will give us an increase in the starch level of the corn because we have more kernel development if we wait until that stage. So, as you're thinking about when you should chop and how far you can push that line, consider what you're using for your silage inoculant. If you're using silage inoculants that contain L-butyrate, you can probably push that dry matter content a little bit higher. And again, if we do that, we will probably increase the starch level in the corn silage, which should increase the performance of your dairy herd. So this is Mike Brook with K-State Research and Extension, encouraging our dairy producers to watch not only whole plant moisture levels, but also the starch level and kernel development as we chop the 2020 crop.
Many thanks, Mike. And after this final break, another visit with K-State's Charlie Lee. You're listening to the K-State Radio Network, and this is Agriculture Today.
Social distancing slows the spread of coronavirus, so stay a minimum of 6 feet away from others and stay home if you can. More info at coronavirus.gov. Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Next up for you on Agriculture Today, our weekly visit with Charlie Lee. He's a wildlife management specialist with K-State Research and Extension, as you know. Charlie, you're taking up the topic today, which has emerged during the pandemic with more frequency, urban rat activity, and we'll talk about why it's in the spotlight here in just a moment. But what we know about typical rat behavior, because these rodents are pretty much detested by just about everybody.
Yes, urban rats, usually of the Norway or black rat species, depend on humans for food and cover. We've had shifts in human behavior because of some disease issues, primarily the COVID-19, that has caused massive changes in human behavior. We see populations of rats increase after natural catastrophes or even after pandemics. And we've had widespread reports of that occurring here as we're well into COVID-19. But we do know that the home range of both Norway and black rats, which would be commonly called the roof rats, their home range, size, and shape is really determined by how much access they have to feed and to cover. They have very irregular home ranges, with individuals often moving along very narrow pathways that connect those areas of cover and food supply. The size of those home ranges varies considerably depending upon location, and within that home range, rats focus a majority of their attention on only about 10 to 11% of the total home range where they may occupy. So people may see rats occasionally in areas, but 90% of their time they're in a much smaller area of home range. That home range can vary, but typically it's down in that 30 square meter range. It's not a large distance. In some locations, they go much further. Male rats actually travel up to 15 times more than what female rats do. So the site fidelity, the distance that they travel, really depends upon the time of year, the time of day. All affect movements of rats. And all of that plays a slight role in that people are now saying they're seeing rats in locations they've not observed them previously. And in order to know if that's a fact or not, we have to understand a little bit about what previous studies have shown about rat movement, site fidelity, and barriers to movement.
And so there is this freshly completed study of how rat movement may have changed as a result of the impacts of the pandemic. And what was discovered here?
Well, the previous research looking at some of the reports of new rat populations and perhaps rats that are being more aggressive was investigated by a group of researchers that looked at rat population and human calls in New York City, in Tokyo, and in Poland. Some of the results that they found were somewhat surprising to me based on what I've seen reported in the media, in that they actually found the overall number of reports decreased by 30% in New York City while increasing in Tokyo. Now, that's in direct contrast to people saying the rats are becoming much more aggressive and they're seeing them much more frequently in areas they've not been reported in the past. So what's really going on here is probably a little more difficult to determine, but it's probably that people are spending more time in locations that they haven't spent that length of time in and are just observing rats in those new locations where previously they were not able to be observed. Another thing that was surprising was that the pest control companies are reporting similar numbers of cases to work on, a similar workload, but the areas in which they're working are quite different. They're having 30 to 40% new customers compared to the food service organizations that has been the heart of their business for many years.
And obviously that relates to the fact that food service has been downed by the COVID situation, so that would be to be expected.
Yeah, and I think these facts, new information, continues to reinforce that in order to get on top of rat management, we need to use an integrated pest management approach. Mm-hmm. We need to follow the acronym HER, H standing for habitat modification, the E standing for exclusion, and the R for removal. Habitat modification, removing those things that rats are feeding on, removing the areas that they utilize for cover, are the ways that we're going to have long-term successes. Short-term successes with the use of solely using toxicants have not proven to be effective long-term. You have to take the approach of reducing the quality of the habitat and remove cover and food in order to be successful in long-term management of rat populations.
And toxicants can fit in there, but they're not a full-fledged solution either?
Toxicants are a very valuable part of the strategy, but they're something that many people want to focus on first. I encourage them to follow the habitat modifications first and then do the exclusion, so you're dealing with a known population of rodents that's not subject to immigration from other nearby populations, and then use toxicants or trapping to get control of the population that's causing the problems.
And these principles are true urban or rural settings for sure. And this is fresh new research looking at the movement of rats during the pandemic and how the changes in various human activities might have influenced that movement. Charlie, thanks for sharing this interesting work here. Charlie Lee, Wildlife Specialist, K-State Research and Extension. Well, our time's away once more, but from time to time we'd like to remind you that you can hear a replay of each day's broadcast in podcast form by subscribing to an automatic download to your mobile device via your podcast platform of preference. That's arranged very easily at agtoday.net, or you can simply go to that website and listen anytime you choose. Look into that if you haven't already at agtoday.net. Meantime, please be back with us right here tomorrow, won't you? Until then, Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today. This is the K-State Radio Network.